So when I say relationship on Valentine's Day, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? Most of us think of romantic kinds of relationships on this day with hearts and flowers and candy and all of that wonderful stuff. And this is definitely the day, of course, to honor those sorts of relationships, whether you're experiencing one or expecting one, right? When we can live in a place of honor and celebration of relationships, whether we are in one or calling one in, we know that what we focus on expands in our life, giving us more opportunities to celebrate and honor relationships, right? So this is a wonderful day to practice that, a day of love. And my talk for us today is relationships as spiritual practice. Relationships as spiritual practice. And I would guess that many of us have at least one unpleasant, less than perfect experience or belief around relationship. Would I be close to right on that? Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we've all had one maybe, right? When we were little perhaps. Yeah, maybe just one. And maybe we have some associations about relationships that we think of, loss of freedom, or maybe we think of sacrifice or other suffering that has to happen when you're in relationship. And yes, some people do create those sorts of relationships, don't they? And notice the words. Some people create those sorts of relationships. It's like Daniel was saying in his opening prayer that we co-create with the divine at all times. So we're always co-creating our lives and our experiences. So today's talk, though, is not just about romantic relationships. Today's talk is about all relationships. All relationships. And we've all got relationships, don't we? Yeah, we've all got relationships. So we're going to be looking at the metaphysical law of reflection as it relates to relationship. The question I'd like for you to lightly hold in your mind today is, are we willing to look at what is being reflected in the mirror of our relationships? Are we willing to look at that? The book, A Course in Miracles, tells us perception is consistent. What you see reflects your thinking, and your thinking reflects your choice of what you want to see. Your values are determiners of this. For what you value, you must want to see, believing what you see is really there. No one can see a world that his mind has not accorded value. Now that's positive or negative value, right? And no one can fail to look upon what he believes he wants. What you see is consistent from the point of view from which you see it. That's a lot of words. The passage is telling us, though, that our values and thoughts reflect to us the world that we experience. That's what that's telling us. And this world is consistent from the point of view that we are looking from. Yes? And the same point of view or energy holds that world in its place for us. Our energy holds that world into place for us. It's a little like quantum physics, if you've ever heard of the observer effect. Observance makes it so to speak. It's the same with our energy is holding our world in place for us. So think of this as it relates to your relationships with other people, whether it's a good relationship or a bad relationship, or maybe just a bad aspect of a good relationship. We've had those too, haven't we? It's really a good relationship, except for this one area that just drives me crazy. Yeah, we've all had that. So this passage is suggesting to us that our experience of them, that relationship, is based on our thinking about them. So let's consider first the bad relationship, or the good relationship that's got a bad piece of it that it just doesn't quite work. Maybe it's with a coworker, maybe it's with a family member, maybe it is with a significant other or spouse. Our perception and our expectation of that person to behave in a certain way does what? It draws that behavior, doesn't it? It draws that behavior because we live in this system of perfection that's the way it works. Our energy draws to us. So that person then begins to demonstrate that behavior, and our mind suddenly screams, I told you so, because our ego loves to be right. Our ego loves to be right. I knew he was going to violate my confidence. I knew she wasn't going to offer to pay for lunch. I knew he was going to be late. I knew it. Have you ever said that? I knew it. And then we say, and so it is. I just created that, didn't I? Right? That's how it works. Our point of view of that person creates our experience of them. Now, if you were thinking about one of your relationships and that just, you can't quite get there, let's look at another example. You've probably heard the story about the teacher who was told at the beginning of the year that little Johnny is the best student in the school. And you're so fortunate to have him in your class. And she's like, oh my goodness, I'm honored. And so little Johnny is in class and she's treating him that way. She's believing in him. She's expecting good things. She's seeing good things. He's making straight A's. She's pretty happy. Till about mid-year, there's a parent-teacher conference, and the parents come in and they're just beside themselves in joy for how well little Johnny is doing and how much he's improved. Well, the teacher's a little confused, and she says, what do you mean improved? I thought he was the best student. She went, oh no, he is by far the worst student, and he's had trouble at home, he's had trouble in class, he's never done well in school, until you came along and believed in him. So her perception of him influenced his behavior. And it's true for us too. Our beliefs influence not only our experience, but those around us. Many of us have been through the foundation class in the science of mind, and we have noticed how much other people in our life have changed after we've been through that class. Right? I don't know what happened to them. My whole family changed. They just became pretty cool after I went through foundations. It's because we changed. And that's reflected back to us in the experience of our lives. So let's flip that and look at the other side and consider a good relationship. Your best buddy, your best friend, your spouse, if the marriage is wonderful, your family or coworker, whatever that might be. Maybe it's a favorite sibling. These relationships usually reflect those shared values, seeing eye to eye about things. You're simpatico, so to speak. You have shared ideals of what's right and what's wrong, and you agree on those things of what's good and what's bad. You might say we're of like minds. We're in alignment with each other. Really enjoy spending time with them, having conversations with them. Hopefully we've all got that person in our life that we have that sort of relationship with. Your perception of that relationship, which is a reflection of your thinking though, right? It's still a reflection of your thinking being reflected back to you. Now, if you've ever been surprised or disappointed by that relationship, that person, that happens, doesn't it? It's like, what happened there? That doesn't sound like them, right? It's because our perception has been violated of them. Our perception of them has been violated in some way. They have made a decision. They have made a choice. They have behaved in a certain way that we would never consider doing. And we cannot understand how they would do that. It's not in alignment with that person that I've always known. And so we're surprised by that. Our perception has now been violated. It's almost like a scratch across a record. Oh my gosh, what happened there? Now, you may be thinking, she's describing a negative experience, and she's telling me that my relationships are a reflection of me. So how is this negative relationship, this negative experience, a reflection of me? Couldn't possibly be. It's all their stuff, right? Absolutely. It's always their stuff, right? Yeah. Well, this is where that thing called the shadow starts to come in, right? The shadow. And we may have relationships, or again, aspects of a relationship that doesn't quite reflect our conscious values and way of thinking. And that's what the shadow is. And according to our friends at Wikipedia, I'll give you a little definition. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is either an unconscious aspect of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify in itself, or the entirety of the unconscious, such as things which a person is not fully conscious of. The shadow is the unknown side and is composed of the parts of yourself that you reject. They're in your personality, but you're blind to them because you don't want to see them. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living and the author of The Science of Mind, he takes a little different perspective of this, and he calls it subconscious. He doesn't call it unconscious. He always said unconscious means you're knocked out. You're unconscious. This is subconscious. This is the subconscious. So he says the subconscious does not mean unconscious. Subconscious merely means subjective to the conscious thought, compelled by reason of its subjectivity to receive what is put into it. Now we might also call this our hidden beliefs, right? We've all discovered those and go, wow, I didn't know I had that belief. I didn't know I had that way within me. So what does this mean in our relationships? What does this shadow thing mean in our relationships? Well, I would suppose that we all have aspects of ourselves that we're unaware of. Things that our ego doesn't let us see, the negative things that we do. A fit of rage comes to mind. If we're angry about something, we're really fired up about it, and we respond. We're not really conscious and aware in that moment of what we're doing. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be doing it. And then afterwards, if we begin to see it, we begin to have that regret. We begin to, oh, that's not me. That's not who I wanted to be. Why did I say that? Oh my gosh, that's not who I am choosing to show up as on the planet, right? And then it was like, why did that happen? How did that happen? What happened there? And that can be that shadow self working through us in that moment. Something got triggered within us. If you've ever had the experience of accidentally stepping in line ahead of the back of the line, have you ever done that? The line's all over the place and you step in and you're oblivious. You don't have any feelings about this. You think you're just in line waiting on something to happen until somebody comes up and taps you on the shoulder and goes, the line starts back here, lady. You kind of go, oh, I'm so sorry, right? You step out and you go back to the back of the line. But in that moment, you were oblivious to your blunder. You had no idea that you had done something wrong in that moment. And doing the shadow work is bringing this unconscious or subjective mind to our conscious awareness. And we do this by questioning and critical thinking. By questioning and critical thinking when these things happen to us, when we've had that emotional outburst about something and we get back to sanity, then to question this, like, what prompted that? What within me prompted that? To begin to look at some of the old stories and beliefs that we may be holding about ourselves. The key to this process is to write it down and to use those discoveries to ultimately change our thinking by bringing light to those shadows. Let's say by way of example, as a child, you were scolded by your parent because you were an outspoken child. And you were speaking out about your opinion about something. And this parent that you loved very, very much scolded you about that. And you made a decision right there and then not to be outspoken. It's not safe. People won't love me if I am outspoken. And we bury that, right? We bury that and it becomes just a belief that we have. Later on in life, we're an adult now. We're in a beautiful relationship and we're at lunch. We're having a lovely conversation and something happens with the service or whatever, and the person that we're with reacts and begins to be very outspoken about the poor service, the poor food, the loud people next door, and all of these things, and you become angry, fearful, resentful. You want to leave. There's some reaction happening to that because you're so scared. Something's going to happen. Something bad is going to happen here. You don't know why. That's the shadow working us, right, in that moment. Now that's a very simplified example of what this is, but those are the sorts of things that we're talking about. And that person that you're in relationship with is the mirror of that shadow self for us. They can be the mirror of our conscious desire. They can also be the mirror of the fear and the shadow pieces and parts and the hidden beliefs within us that we can't see, i.e. shadow, right? So when those things happen in relationship, when we're bouncing off of each other in relationship, those are the times to do that inner spiritual work and to look at what is this a reflection of me about? Now, I know that's not a conscious part of my reflection. I know that, but I don't know if it's truly not a subconscious reflection. So that's the piece of that we work with and look at with the reflection. Understanding how this law works, we can see how we might be able to take some actions in our lives, right, to improve all of our relationships. You know, take that same scenario of the outspokenness and imagine you're on public transit and that happens. Someone on the bus or the plane or the train becomes very outspoken about something. You're probably going to be under your seat, aren't you? Thinking something bad's going to happen here. Something bad's going to happen here. And that, you know, you can almost feel the emotion if you have any of that within you. And those are the ways that we can get triggered and understand ways that we can make changes in our life. When we recognize all relationships are reflections of some part of us, we can grow in our spiritual awareness and realize the negative parts are only the shadow of something within us. Again, asking, how is this me? So this is the spiritual practice for us of our relationships, is looking at those reflections, the good ones and the ones that challenge us, right? Looking at both sides. Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind talks about this, and he says, in turning to the law, realize that it is a law of reflection. Life is a mirror of king and slave. Emerson said, if you want a friend, be a friend. And that's why we say whatever it is we're trying to manifest in our life, we first become it. If I'm looking to manifest love, I must be love. And we talked about that last Sunday, the self-love, in order to radiate that externally to attract to us love. Want a friend? Want love? Be a friend. Be love, right? Want success? Be success, right? Live from a successful mindset. As the idea of friendship dawns upon the consciousness, the law of attraction produces friends, for one is the picture and the other is the thing. This is the great teaching of involution and evolution. The thought involved and the result evolved. One is the treatment and the other is the demonstration. And that basically sums up the science of mind, doesn't it? That sums up what we teach. Cause and effect, law of reflection, ideas and form. All things we talk about within our teaching. And these are all the natural laws of the universe, and they work alike for everyone. They work alike for everyone. We live in this beautiful system that just works automatically. And we're the individualized players within the system who get to utilize that system as we believe. That's what that means. As we believe, we get to utilize that. By being willing to look at what is being reflected in the mirror of our relationships, we can better understand what those beliefs actually are and to bring our healing light to illuminate those shadow places within us. So let's take a look at some spiritual tools for this week and see how we can use our spiritual practices in all of our relationships. Okay? And don't forget to join our Mindful Monday group. You can sign up in the lobby if you're here in the room. For those of you online, you can send me an email through our website, scottsdalecsl.org, and we'll add you to the list for tomorrow's distribution. So our first tool today is visualization. We don't talk a lot about visualization in Science of Mind, but visualization is really where we form that idea in our mind, that picture in our mind of what it is that we are calling in, and we hold that and we use our powerful imagination to call that into our life, to become it, in other words. So this week I invite you to look at one relationship in your life that you're seeking to shift in some way. Now, this relationship may be with your health or your wealth or your love or your creative expression. We have relations with those things too, don't we? We have relationships with those things too. Maybe, first see what is there now. What is your point of view and what are your thoughts about it? What do you think about your health right now? What do you think about your love right now? What do you think about your creative expression right now? What's your point of view about it? Is it empowering and powerful? Is it something not empowering and powerful? The second step would be then, what would you prefer instead? If it's an area of your life that's not quite working right now, what would you prefer instead? How would that look? How would it feel? How would it sound to be in that new preference? What would you experience as this relationship? Then I invite you to spend 5 minutes, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, so to speak. Only 5 minutes though, really focusing on and visualizing this new preferred experience. And make it as real in your imagination as you possibly can. Let's say it's health, and you just want to feel vitally alive and vibrant and light and free and empowered. And how do those feelings feel in your body? What would you be doing? What would that experience smell like? Healthy foods and no, I'm going to say this, I hope I don't offend anybody, no grease. But how is it gonna feel? How is it gonna be to be in that experience? The second tool this morning is sacred inquiry. And I just love that word, sacred inquiry. It's where we go within, and we are in that quietness, in the stillness within us, and we listen. And I invite you to select a relationship or an aspect of a relationship that doesn't seem to be working right now. And spend time this week contemplating what it is that's not working, and ask yourself how this might be your shadow self. How might that be my shadow self that's being reflected to me in this piece of this relationship or this entire relationship? Look for old stories. Look for messages from the past to lend insight. Look at the part that's not working and really tap into, why does that annoy you? Why does it make you uncomfortable? And try and reflect back to where that started, so that again we can heal that, we can bring our light to it. Writing down your discoveries so that you remember them, so come out of your meditation, write them down, journal them out, and work with them. And if you get stuck on any of that this week, please reach out to Daniel or myself, because this is deeper work. This is the deeper spiritual work of really digging up those shadow things, but how healing it is to be able to then experience such health in your relationships. We all have a lot of relationships, and we all have a lot of opportunities to use our spiritual practices in them, don't we? And it can be anything from the personalities on TV to our health and wealth. It can be an individual relationship or a piece of a relationship. So think about that as you move through your week this week. I want to close this morning with the poem that Ernest quoted in The Science of Mind. It's by American poet Madeline Bridges, and she passed away in 1920. So she was older than Ernest, and but he found this quote in her poem. He liked it, and I found the whole poem, so I'd like to share that with us this morning. It's called Life's Mirror. There are loyal hearts, there are spirits brave, there are souls that are pure and true. Then give to the world the best that you have, and the best will come back to you. Give love, and love to your life will flow, a strength in your utmost need. Have faith, and a score of hearts will show their faith in your work and deed. Give truth, and your gift will be paid in kind, and honor will meet honor meet. And the smile which is sweet will surely find a smile that is just as sweet. Give sorrow and pity to those who mourn. You will gather in flowers again the scattered seeds from your thoughts outborn, though the sowing seemed but vain. For life is the mirror of king and slave. 'Tis just what we are and do. Then give to the world the best that you have, and the best will come back to you.
Nice.
Isn't that pretty? Yeah. So, that is our message for today. Would you join me for a prayer? As we go within, we just anchor in that sweet space of spirit and recognize that the very breath that we're breathing is God itself. It is life itself. For God is all that there is. The power, the presence, the infinite love, the harmony, balance, peace, joy, inspiration, intelligence, and wisdom, and so much more. So much more. But for today, we're going to know God as love. As our hearts are open to this holiday of Valentine's Day and celebration of all things love, we open our hearts to receive love, to give love, to be love. And so as we do this, we recognize our unity in that love of God, in that love of the divine, and with each other. For we are all in this together. We are all one. And we are whole, perfect, and complete in that oneness. And so today I speak my word for and about each of us, knowing that we are in divine relationship with each other, with ourselves, and with the divine. Again, that unity and wholeness of the expression of love itself. And I know that all that we seek in this life is a blessing to us, is a desire of our hearts placed there by Spirit. For the co-creation of this life, for the expansion and expression of God is us. And what an exciting adventure that is for us, to be on this path of spiritual unfoldment, of evolution. We are so very blessed. And I know too that Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living is blessed by each and every one who attends in person and virtually, anyone that listens later. For we are community, and we are sharing these principles with the world. We are experiencing and expanding our own divine magnificence as spirit in form. And I know that as we as individuals are successful in our endeavors, that our center is successful, and that expands to expand further and further into Scottsdale, Arizona, and our world. I know for anyone this day that has anything on their heart whatsoever that they are seeking prayer around, that as we lift that into the sacredness of this prayer, into this high consciousness, that the healing, the blessing, the abundance, the answers, the clarity, whatever it is revealed right here, right now, for the complete and total healing of whatever the desire might be. And so it is with great gratitude and joy and thanksgiving that I release this into the action and activity of the law. I know it's already done. There's nothing else to do except affirm it together and say, and so it is.